can all remember back to January 6, 2021, the day of the attack on the U.S. Capitol. Some people call it the insurrection. Well, today, federal authorities have arrested a Virginia man in connection with the placement of 2 pipe bombs just outside the headquarters of the Republican and Democratic National Committees the night before the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol. The FBI makes an arrest, I guess it was probably yesterday, into pipe bombs placed on the eve of January 6, AP sources say. So this one is a little bit unusual for me, and I'll tell you why, Holly. A couple reasons. One, I don't know what took 5 years, but obviously there was a significant amount of investigation. And two, you have to wonder, after all of the insurrectionists get pardoned,
right,
whether it's worth chasing the other person who placed the pipe bombs the night before, or whether or not that person's going to be pardoned as well.
Yeah, that's a really great question.
Anyway, here's more from ABC News.
The arrest comes nearly 5 years after the discovery of the pipe bombs outside the RNC and DNC headquarters on the afternoon of January 6th, roughly 16 hours after they were placed by a suspect who was seen on various surveillance cameras. The suspect is expected to face charges for allegedly planting the devices, which investigators later determined were viable explosives that, if detonated, could have resulted in, quote, serious injury or death, marking an extraordinary development in one of the most high-profile federal investigations in recent history. It's not clear the full scope of evidence that authorities have gathered allegedly tying the suspect to the planting of the bombs. An FBI official confirmed the arrest to ABC News. Karen Travers, ABC News, Washington.
You know, and another thing we're not getting, Holly, is much information about the crime itself. We don't know, at least from what I'm seeing online, who the suspect is. We don't know his or her name.
I actually do see something from Fox News, and it's just 20 minutes ago. He's been identified as a man named Brian Cole. So C-O-L-E, and he is from Virginia.
Okay, another thing that I didn't see, maybe will show up here, or what the exact charges are. I don't know whether that's been posted yet either. I mean, it's kind of fast-moving here. We're really getting some information that is at the last minute. This maybe is a distinct enough from the insurrection part itself that the administration will allow the prosecution to continue.
I don't know. I mean, for me, it just kind of feels like it's all part of the same thing. And so I think your initial question of everybody else has been pardoned, so why wouldn't this guy be pardoned? Right? I don't know. Maybe it's because he also put a pipe bomb outside the Republican headquarters, not just Democratic. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, the fact that he's been identified and now been named means that he's in custody almost certainly. Well, he is in custody. He'll probably be held in custody for some time. I mean, bombing a federal facility without even looking up the code is probably a pretty serious. You know, placing a bomb at a federal facility is an act of terrorism, I would assume, under the federal code, and that could be a fairly significant crime, maybe even more than some of the insurrectionists faced.
I think one of the things that's interesting about this is how long it's been, almost 5 years, as you mentioned. There have been a ton of conspiracy theories about this and why it has taken so long, right? In fact, even Kash Patel, the head of the FBI right now under President Trump, is like, we're still investigating, just hold your horses, right? So it's interesting. I think there have been people who were falsely accused of being the person who placed the pipe bomb. That can be really damaging to them as well. So it's interesting.
Yeah, so you know, bombs are treated, I guess, you know, for obvious reasons under federal code much more seriously than most anything else. I mean, pipe bombs, anybody that makes an explosive device, even more serious than firearm charges, just because of the nature of bombs and you know what it takes to build them and what damage they can cause, what tremendous carnage they can cause.
Yeah.
So it I guess I'm sort of talking in circles a little bit here because part of me thinks, why are we investigating this? Part of me thinks, how can you not investigate it? How can you not solve the crime? Let the administration do what it wants, but let the criminal justice system play itself out. I don't know that this is going to be a very compelling person for a pardon by the president.
I can't speak to that, but it is interesting to look at some of the details. This is in the Associated Press, and they are talking about how agents, like They did things like cell phone tower data triangulation, right? They looked at credit card transactions from hobby shops and major retailers to identify customers who purchase components resembling those used in the explosive devices. And then they went and looked for shoes, Nike shoes. There were thousands of pairs of Nike that were specific to the kind that this suspect wore. Distributed through more than 24 retailers, and they subpoenaed credit card records from Foot Locker and other chains to try and figure out who this guy was.
Well, so that's what you do with a case like this. I mean, you've got little pieces here and there, but if you put enough of them together, let's say that you've got that he happened to have purchased Nike shoes a couple weeks before.
Yeah.
That he happened to be at Home Depot purchasing items that could be used
Right.
for a pipe bomb.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you start putting things together, and
much.
pretty soon you got a pretty good case.
Yeah.
You know, any one of these pieces alone, there's nothing wrong with anything by itself in a vacuum.
Right.
Purchasing shoes.
And he used credit cards, and it just makes me think of that movie National Treasure. Where he's stealing the original Declaration of Independence, but he's pretending that he's taken a fake out of the gift shop, and he doesn't have enough cash, and so he has to use his credit card, and they can track him down that way. It's
Well,
just,
there's
a little bit
no, there's, I've kind of learned over the years, there's almost no perfect crime. I mean, and
I know.
this individual must have felt after 5 years that, in fact, he had
he's probably
committed
okay.
the perfect crime, and,
Well,
and he's going to be
right.
okay.
Yeah.
But the investigation, you got to hand it to the FBI. They didn't give up on this at all, and they pushed it as far as they could. And like you say, even to the point where they're going to cell phone towers and following individual, like they can say, okay, he was here at this time, he was at this place at this time, this is where the bomb was. You know, he was buying something at Home Depot at this time. I mean, pretty soon it's like, this is a pretty good case.
They did a lot of that with the Idaho case too. Remember that, the college student murder?
Oh yeah,
right. They did a lot of that geolocating.
Kohlberger, was that his
Yeah,
name?
yeah,
yeah,
Kohlberger.
yeah. That one.
We're already forgetting his name, which is a good thing. It's a good
pled
thing.
guilty, he's life in prison without possibility. Move on. But so I'll be watching this one pretty closely and find out. Because if he's in custody right now, he'll have a federal hearing fairly soon. He'll have an arraignment soon, maybe this week, today or tomorrow. And we'll learn a lot more about the charges. Because once he has the proceeding, once he has court, and once he has what's called his indictment is unsealed, and he's allowed to plead guilty or not guilty. Well, he'll plead not guilty, obviously. The indictment will come out. We'll find out what the exact charges are, is what I'm trying to say. We'll learn a lot more about the investigation and what the charges are.
Yeah.
And sometimes when the indictment is unsealed, you learn a lot more about the investigation, things that you've already talked about, but they'll be articulated in pretty deep form in the indictment itself.
Yeah, I'm sure they will be. And like I said, the only place that I'm seeing so far is this person being named is on Fox News, but they have named him. So
Yeah.
Brian Cole.
Right.